The pharmaceutical industry is a complex and fascinating field. It takes countless of people to bring a high-quality product to the market. In the Qualitalks Podcast, I bring to you leaders, experts and innovators who will share their experiences and explain to us how they do it. Welcome to the Qualitalks Podcast. I'm Jan Kugler, your host, and this is the third part of my talk with Jennifer Kussauer. Jenny is a highly experienced international GxP auditor, and in the previous episode, she gave a crash course on how to become a successful auditor. We also started covering the audit process, and Jenny explained all about what you need to know to prepare well for conducting an audit. In this part, we continue talking about all the remaining stages of the audit. We'll cover all that is important during and after the inspection. We talk about the opening meeting, how to address deviations, skills that are important for auditors, mistakes that companies should avoid, writing a good audit report, and much, much more. So stay tuned. So we finished the preparations, and now we
provided the audit agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now we head to
the side.
To the side.
Yeah, or to the department if it's an internal audit or whatever. Exactly. I've already mentioned that how important the opening meeting is. You not only get to know your auditees, understand who is taking part of the team, who is head of manufacturing or head of quality control whatsoever. You also introduce your audit team that came along with you. You might want to clarify, you quickly go through the audit agenda. If it can go ahead as planned, you will give them an idea of how you like the audit day to go ahead, actually. And you are making pretty sure that you are sitting in the same boat at the end of the day. You want the same result. So if you are pharmaceutical drug manufacturer, you want the product to be safe for the patient. So, and that needs to be assured somehow, right? And if you as an auditor can help to improve the processes, wonderful, right? So your job is not to make findings, to make finger pointing or something like. You're there to help the teams, and you got to let them know that you are there to help the teams also, right? Yeah. Apart from checking compliance that you do on the way, but you're helping the teams.
Yeah. Would you do it differently by internal audits than in external?
No. The approach is pretty much the same. Is of course when you know people internally, it can be more informal, of course, and commonly people tend to be more open than is.
Are they?
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah. If they have the right attitude towards.
Yeah, because sometimes you get more resentment. That's what I find. It's not always, but sometimes it was okay. I had stuff to do. What the hell are you doing here?
Yeah, you see that happens when your quality policy. When you have defined a quality policy and that is not being communicated properly to your staff members, to the ones that you actually need your buy-in from, that's the employees. Yeah, you need to make sure with your quality policy that you don't impose anything upon them. You want them to support the whole process, and you want them to understand that with the quality policy, their processes are being supported, and you can help them improve their processes and whatnot. So you need to understand. It is super important for your employees to understand that this is not an extra burden. No, it is a support. It is a support function. And that's what a lot of companies fail to do. And that's why then sometimes you get some resentment when you start auditing, because they have the wrong impression of what an audit is supposed to do.
Yeah, and I see it also in many companies where they have great quality systems in place, but the quality policy across the organization may be a bit lacking in this point. And I find it's really interesting. It's one of the issues that I discussed with Paul Palmer in the first podcast about total quality assurance, where the quality should rest not only with the quality assurance department, it should rest on the shoulders of every person in the company, and everybody should know that they are part of the quality, and not the quality assurance is responsible, but rather everyone in his ways is responsible. And I think in many companies or departments it's a bit lacking because everybody concentrates on his job, his deadlines, but they forget the importance of the quality, and they don't also understand again, as we said, why they do the audits.
Exactly. They don't understand their role in the quality process, how important everyone's effort is within the quality process. So, and that is something that needs to be clearly communicated. People need to be trained on that. Full stop. That's it.
What are your tips on having a good starting meeting?
Give them the impression that you're not there to make findings, that you will make a finding by all means. No, you are checking for compliance, of course, but you do that on the way. You are there to help them improve the processes. You are there to just have a look how they do it, let them explain that to you, and that you're just giving some tips along the way. And of course, you're checking compliance along the way and specifications or contract, whatever content. Yeah. So just let them know that you're sitting in the everybody is sitting in the same boat, and we all want the exact same result at the end of the day, and that you're there to support them. Full stop.
Okay. And so the next phase you start with probably with the tour.
Right, yeah.
And how would you look for the right things?
Yeah, it pretty much, during the tour facility.
During the tours, when you look at the processes,
Right.
So you follow the checklists, but you cannot just do checklists. You sometimes need to deviate and ask additional questions. So it's great that we all know that we want the same thing, but as we said, usually company employees are instructed not to tell more than they're asked, but you still need to dig sometimes a bit deeper.
And also at this stage, you got to let them know that it is better to discuss those topics internally than someone coming from externally or for an external source.
Exactly.
Let's
So
put it
this
that
is
way,
with the internal. So with internal, of course, just be completely open.
Yes.
Don't hide anything, because it would be a disaster. If an external audit comes and he says, especially he sees that you may have done an audit in this department a month ago, and still you have those critical stuff, then you put in jeopardy the whole quality system in question.
Right.
But if you go to the external,
right.
they're not that happy to share.
Well, they're not that happy to share that information. Well, you have just, you got to be persistent. That's it.
Ask again.
Yeah, ask again. Ask until you are answered your question, until you provide that documentation, until you've shown that report, whatever is you want to see. And you easily, you will see, or you will quickly notice when people try to hide information, or they try to deliberately postpone stuff or discussions and negotiations and whatnot. Just hang in there. Yeah, you will get your information.
But I guess when people do it, they try to hide or postpone, then you know where to push. Because you know, okay, if they're hiding this means I need to look a bit deeper.
Exactly.
In this area.
Yes.
So better not to give some smart, clever answers. Just to tell the truth, I guess. And because I guess they prepare in advance to answer some of the deficiencies. Sometimes it probably would be human error. He was let go. He's not here anymore. You probably hear it a lot. Human error.
Yeah, I hear it a lot. It pretty much depends on what kind of answers you receive. What kind of error-making culture the company has implemented. So, is it okay to make an error? Is it okay to learn from it? Has the company implemented such a culture that employees feel safe, even if they make an error, they don't have to fear consequences or something they like. Yeah, is that something that is common within the company? Is it okay? Can you learn from it, or is it completely, you say, is completely forbidden, and finger pointing is taking place once you've done that, and you have to fear consequences? Sometimes that people will refrain giving you the right answers because due to that fact that it is not okay to make mistakes, that people finger point at you and say, okay, that was your fault. So and now you have the fear of being made redundant. Yeah. So if you have an open culture regarding your error, mistaking, whatever, so that will help you a lot. How open people are during audits, and what kind of expectations you might have regarding your answers and stuff.
Yeah, should be part of their quality policy.
For example, exactly, yeah. And also with every error that you make, there is a chance in it. There is an opportunity to learn from it. How would you be able to develop as a company when there is no learning curve, for example? So that's, you see, it should be quite natural, and people should not be punished for unless they've done that deliberately, which no one does. Yeah. So those things happen. It's out of, I don't know, for whatever reasons. So, and usually people don't make mistakes deliberately because they want to destroy, I don't know, that particular batch, or I don't know what. Those things just happen, yeah? And there's always an opportunity to learn something out of it.
Do you see a lot of companies that neglect the root cause analysis?
Yeah, of course.
And have so many small deviations that they consider it just as part of the process already?
Yeah, of course. Yep. Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, so you can think multiple things about it. So it depends on the size of the company. Yeah. So it depends on actually the process. How quality critical is that deviation, for example? Yeah. Is it really a quality critical process? Of course, then there's no way around. Yeah. If you have huge deviation, there's no way around a root cause analysis. So if you have only minor mistakes that appear, or minor flaws that appear during the usual manufacturing process, you need to consider how much of an effort do you see. I've discussed that a lot with people. They say if we opened up a deviation just now and went all the way down for the root cause analysis for that minor deviation, we would do nothing else. We would not produce anything anymore. Yeah, and sometimes that's right. You got to see the relation between, is that actually necessary? Is that a natural? Is that coming naturally out? Is that just a very small, tiny one? You have to assess, and you have to do that on a case-by-case basis. Definitely. So there is no generalizing. You can do that, you can't do that. Commonly, I know that people don't have the manufacturing sites, they don't have the resources to do all of that documentation. So to do full root cause analysis, to do full X, Y, and Z for minor deviations, for example. And they will argue that way, and that they will not produce anymore, they will just do that documentation.
Yeah. Sure. You need to look at it case by case, but I think also it depends on the deviation and also how common it is. So if you also have the same deviation multiple times during each batch, it may be save you systematic, and also even if it's that minor, it probably would be better for you just to do the one-time root cause analysis and really find a solution for it than waste so much human time on writing down each of the deviation, justifying it as a minor and moving away, and then you do it every time again and again.
You need to have a defined process for exactly having oversight. having a look at and analyze the trending, you need to define KPIs that exactly tell you, okay, this is the second or third time that minor deviation occurred. What are we going to do with that now? Yeah, you have to have defined process that tells you exactly that. So do we want to analyze it now, or do we want to just let the opportunity slip to do it, or just not do anything? And of course, that should all of that should be documented. And if it's necessary, have a risk-based approach, as with everything.
Yeah, the risk-based approach, it's becoming quite much more popular also in the FDA, by the FDA, and in every new regulations that come out. It always also in the Annex 1, they always talk about risk control, risk-based approach, and I find it really important, and I find it's really logical, and I hope that everything would be that much of risk approach, of course, according to resources.
Of course, because it requires a lot of work. That needs a lot of effort that needs to be put in. You need to be crystal clear. What is the associated risk, and how can we overcome that? How can we mitigate?
You need to be serious with it,
yes.
Because if you just come there to fill out a form and you're not serious in solving the case, it brings nothing in the end, just another document that you put in the shelf.
Exactly.
Do you see a lot of cases where you come to a company and you ask for some documentation, and they bring you something that and you ask, okay, show me this documentation about calibration, and they pull it out, it's already prepared, and you see it's like 3 months ago, or it looks perfect, right? So it looks like, okay, they chose the right, they chose the best one to show you. Would you dig deeper and ask, okay, show me now the last one, or don't show me one, show me 5. What would be your approach?
Yeah, definitely. So if I have the impression that things are looking very much made up, yeah, as they've just prepared the best example they could, of course, I will have a look at another example and see if that is the same standard or not, if that looks completely different, or is that the only documentation that they have that they can show. So then definitely there's something wrong with the process. Some companies tend to do that, but you got to see behind it and see.
How often does it happen?
I wouldn't say it's common practice to do so, but it happens though. It happens, yeah.
And usually when you ask for more information, for more examples, then you usually find more problems then.
It pretty much depends. Sometimes they can surprise you, and they have not even given you the best example, but all of the documentation looks like that. All of, for example, the calibration example, then wow, yeah, perfect. So that rarely happens, yeah?
There are also those amazing companies that do everything perfect.
Exactly. There are those companies that have all their stuff together.
It would be great and everything looks made up, but it isn't.
No, it isn't. You see, there's those rare cases, they exist, yeah? But yeah, most of the time, you know that they have just picked out examples, and you see, okay, show me something else. And then, of course, you see completely different picture. Yeah.
Because I think if you choose one document, but if each document looks just perfect, it's just too suspicious, because you cannot do production without mistakes. It doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen. But you would automatically look at the deviation process, at the CAPA process, and change everything having to do with the quality management system, and you would say, okay, so those are according to your process flowchart. Those are the quality critical processes. So show me exactly from A to Z, or you would just go and pick a batch yourself, just randomly. So whatever. Yeah. So you just randomly pick something, and you would say, okay, not something they have prepared, but randomly anything else. And then you will see what is made up and what is not.
Okay. do you have some more tips of your own on how to conduct a good audit on an external site? Something that you learned during your long career that you said, okay, I didn't do it earlier, but with experience, that helped me a lot.
So I think one of the most critical points to mention here is your time management. So definitely, once you start auditing, you are considering saying, okay, for the document management system or the quality management system, I allow myself to align 2 hours for that. But then you start looking at the documentation and you find, oh, okay, it probably won't work out. I need to cut some other time off from other topics during the audit agenda. Okay, that can always happen, by the way. Yeah. But anyway, it is important to know that specific topics need more time, even for discussing that, discussing the process, understanding the process, and reviewing the corresponding documentation. And you need to be sure that when you are on site, that you align the amount of time that is needed for that.
So Jenny, what are the most frequent deviations that you encounter?
Right. So most common findings are usually around the document management system, the GMP compliant documentation itself, training system around that also. A very common finding also having to do with validation of processes, of methods, of systems, whatsoever, qualification of equipment. That's all very, very common. You see that all over the place.
Can you give some examples so you can do a lot of mistakes in each of the parts? But for example, if you go to qualifications, what mistakes do companies or the departments do when they qualify the equipment?
Sometimes they use non-qualified equipment. So just use that because they have used that for ages. Or
just forgot about it.
Yeah, just forgot about it, or they just they don't even think about having a qualification document for that equipment, for example.
So do you see it more in ISO based companies or also in GMP?
Both, I would say.
Also in GMP, you find equipment that they use for years and just forget to qualify it.
Yeah, it happens. It happens fairly easily when you just new to the business, for example, or you haven't produced GMP products before, and then of course you haven't qualified any of your equipment because it wasn't necessary, more or less.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So in this part, yes, when a company wants to go to to expand its business, to go to GMP, so it's a whole story of its own. So it's whole new challenges.
Yes, and also how do they do that? Do you have a qualification validation master plan, for example? And how would you go along then? How would you actually show you have the process under control, that your equipment does what it was supposed to do? So, and that's something that is a whole new concept, and that's something that some companies they haven't understood properly. They haven't understood what the regulations actually require in terms of GMP, or they have interpreted differently. For example, that can happen also. They're saying, "No, did we have to do that?"
What kind of companies are more difficult with accepting change? Is it companies that run a process, the same process for many, many years, and they're used to the process, and they just say, I'm doing so long, I don't want to change it? Or companies that are new to GMP, they come from ISO, and suddenly they need to implement GMP? Who would have more resistant to change?
Potentially both. However, I think it is the company who has had the same standards or the same process for I don't know, like 30 years or so, they're more prone to be resistant to change, because they will argue like, why do we have to change that? The machines have been running like that forever, no flaws, no whatsoever, no deviations. No, you know, that's not true. But anyway, so why should we change all of a sudden? Why should we change the process? We've done this like that forever. So what's they don't see the reason behind it, and to put a lot of effort in it to make it GMP compliant, for example. So companies having set ISO standards, for them I think the most challenging part is the documentation, because ISO doesn't require it, but GMP does. And that is where, sometimes there is resistance there and saying, oh God, we are already ISO certified, so what else do we want? What do you want now? Yeah. So we've already done X, Y, and Z, and why do we need to be that specific? Okay. So once you've understood the concept of GMP, it is clear that you need to do that. But you see that resistance, potentially, both situations can bring a lot of resistance, actually. Yeah.
So it's a bit a different resistance, I think. So with the ISO, you just so I think they should have more understanding, because they understand, okay, we're taking our business to the next level. And as soon as they understand what GMP is, they should be maybe excited to implement some of the changes. Probably not at first, because they see all the work that comes with it, but they understand how important it is if they want to do GMP business.
Right. If you want to establish as a GMP manufacturer, yes.
You cannot go around it.
Nope.
So they must jump on board and they must do these changes, and they will get used to it. But people who already do GMP, so they have also this thing that they were running GMP already, and it worked. So why change? So it's difficult from different directions.
Yes, it is. But also, those people that have done GMP forever, they also need to understand that the regulations might change. They might be updates. They might be, I don't know.
CGMP.
See, exactly. So, and it is the quality assurance department or the unit's function, actually, to inform people about what needs to be done on a current basis according to GMP. Yeah.
So we finished this part of the audit. It was a long part. It takes a lot of work, and let's say we also looked at the documents and so on. We come to the wrap up.
Right.
So what are the challenges? So it sounds simple, but it's all about the right touch to the wrap up when you have also the findings. So how do you do it?
So it pretty much depends what kind of findings you have, how delicate they are, how quality critical they are, how non-compliant they are, for example. They get, of course, I will communicate whatever I see as a non-compliance or what I see there is room for improvement during the audit. The auditee will know that immediately once we discuss that. I say, okay, for that specific process, we need to go into another direction because we're not following that. We're not being compliant here, for example. So I will not make that, I will not hide that information from them. They will know that during the audit anyway. So the wrap up or the closing meeting, it is just a summary of what you have discussed with them during the conduct of the audit, during the course of the audit. You will summarize once more what you've discussed with them, and also have you discussed any corrective measures already? Is it a quick fix, for example? Something, all of that will go into the closeout meeting. However, if you have a critical issue that needs to be addressed immediately, so and you will, so if you come. So you will not wait until the closeout meeting anyway. If you have detected something critical, you will let the quality unit know, the site head, and so on and so forth, so that they can implement immediate measures. So you will not wait until the closeout meeting. So the closeout meeting would cover major findings, would cover minor findings, recommendations, and the like. Usually, I will not give out any categorizations during the closeout meeting. However, commonly the auditees get a hint of what might be a bigger issue, what might come out as a major finding, although I have not specifically classified that during the audit wrap-up. What usually is actually a good way to do it is actually give them good feedback from the start. Saying them, giving them a bit thank you, and
do the sandwich approach.
Right, exactly. Put the whatever you have as findings, put that in there, that bit, summarize that, and at the end of the day, give them something positive, so that they, even if they have plenty of findings, that this is not the only thing they have in mind when the audit closes, and they still have a good feeling at the end of the day, but they know that they need to work on specific topics because you have discussed it with them during the audit. So that is a commonly good approach to do that. It pretty much also depends on how the audit went in general. So if you have, for example, we talked about that right in the beginning, if you have audits that did not go well, so because people they wanted to hide information, the atmosphere was not good, they were not supportive, also I will mention that during the closeout meeting. So then, I will do that as objective as possible, of course, but I will let them know that it was a difficult audit situation, for example. So even in the closeout meeting, you don't have to hide anything. And it's not.
And do you get rejections to your findings in some occasions when people disagree with you?
Commonly, they don't disagree with the finding itself because you discuss with them what's going wrong or where is there room for improvement during the audit anyway. And you present it to them in a way that they understand it, so that they know, okay, you're right.
But don't you have situations when they say they don't agree and they think that they're right, that they say, no, we don't agree, and scientifically we have proven this and this and this. We did another approach and we think we are right. Does it happen?
Yeah, it happens. But if there is enough scientific background for the approach, the method, the process that they use, they have applied a risk assessment, and there is a rationale for what they do, and they have enough food there, then it would not be a finding for me. If they show me that the process is under control, why would I make it a finding then? Even if GMP says X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. But you see, they think they did everything right, but you find a hole. You see, for you, they missed something that they didn't do, that they taken something too lightly.
Right. So I will let them know. And if I think there is no further room for discussion, so then it will stay a finding. Yeah, definitely. So because at the end of the day, you or the audit team lead, they or at the end, if there is a lot of discussions with the auditee, the QA unit will decide on that finally. Do we want to make it a finding or not? So if there's endless discussions, for example, internally, that might happen also. So at the end of the day, you have to trust your audit team lead for them to make the right decisions. And if they say that definitely there is enough ground here that there is a gap, or there is definitely something wrong with that process and we want them to improve that, or there is non-compliance there, which needs to end, yes, then it will stay that way. Yeah, no further discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Great. So so for now we did a lot of tips for auditors. What about a tip for the auditees? How should they receive the auditor in all of those parts? So we said already they should be open-minded and understand that we are not here to look for the findings. We are here to find solutions. But maybe something else that you would say that would help with improving the auditor-auditee relationship, would make the audit go much smoother if every company did this?
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of times what auditors are often lacking is that the documentation is not well prepared. The documentation that is actually that needs to be verified during the audit, or maybe it was already there in the document request, but it's only being provided during the audit, for example, which is quite common. Sometimes it's not. You see, they have the documentation somewhere, and they start searching for it on the day of the audit. So.
But you already informed them that you want to look at it before the audit.
Yeah, exactly. So it would make people's life much easier if they had already prepared it, if they had gathered that documentation from here, there, everywhere, wherever it is stored. Yeah, have that documentation together so that you don't need to start looking at it, searching for it at the day of the audit and waste everyone's time, for example. Well, no. Sometimes it's strategy, yeah? To be honest.
Yeah, I wanted to say it, but it's a bad strategy. It's time waste. And is it a successful strategy, or do you have a way around it?
Well, successful. Well, at the end of the day, if it's a relevant record or document that I definitely wanted to see, exactly. So I will ask until the end of the day, until the end of the audit. And if it's still not provided, then I will let them know exactly. So if they say, okay, we cannot provide it just now, is it okay to be provided until tomorrow? Okay. So sometimes it is okay to do that. If they provide it to you the next day and you can still have a look at it, that is okay. If there's still no answer, and they're not coming up with an explanation to why, where is that documentation? Why can they not provide it? Or has there been a lot of, trying to hide information, trying to get around it, that someone looks at that documentation, then definitely I will let them know that I was not able to verify process X, Y, and Z through verification of the documentation.
The question is if they maintain the position that they cannot find it, if you cannot make another finding that their documentation system is malfunctioning.
Well, if you have one example, that doesn't show you that the whole system is not working. So if you have multiple examples of that,
we say we cannot show you this and this and this and this.
Then
so in another way, maybe they hide one deviation, but it shows that you have no
control over the process.
Your documentation also in the process.
Yeah. That if that sums up, if you have multiple of those occurrences, that will sum up as a systemic issue. Then, if you have evidence that is there no control over the process. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So it's a great tip, and I think some companies do it, but if those who don't, they really should consider those preparations really in advance. Because it saves a lot of time and hassle for both of the parties.
Exactly. And if you already know that particular documentation contains a lot of flaws or is non-compliant in a way whatsoever, be honest with the auditor. So say, look here, okay, that's the documentation. We know it has its flaws. It has some non-compliances in it, but we are aware. We are already addressing it. For example, we already noted it. We are addressing it. So you see, then it doesn't turn out as bad as. So that's okay. I can live with that. So, but completely hiding that and you see, trying to get around it somehow. You see,
it's still better to be honest and say, okay, we are aware, we are working on it.
Exactly, but you see, dishonesty triggers more questions. Actually, yeah,
that's true. Because for me, if I wouldn't see a critical document, I would automatically consider it as faulty.
Exactly.
And then I would have suspicions to do business in the future, because if I cannot confirm some critical point in the process, then it's for me automatically failed.
So if they are not able to show they have full control over the process with a risk-based approach and a rationale and corresponding documentation, then that's a fair. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for this another precious tip. Moving on to the last phase, the report.
Right.
So we said already, write it as quickly as possible. Don't wait.
No.
Are there other tips on how to do a clear, readable, objective report that really gives value?
Right. Be precise. Be short also. Don't write lengthy text. Yeah, no one reads that. Of course, you have to have your introduction and your summary, executive summary, which is perfectly fine. However, subdivide into categories what you looked at. And don't put too much text in each field, because no one reads that anyway. Be precise, but also don't make that mistake to put one sentence findings in there. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So you can do that for ISO. That's perfectly fine, because ISO doesn't require anything else. But for GMP, please don't do that. So for when writing up a GMP finding or GxP finding whatsoever, be as precise as possible. Know if you're writing this down as a finding, know where is the non-compliance in the standards. Find your reference. And B, think about the consequences. What impact does your finding have? Doesn't it have any impact at all? Then it's not a finding. Can you not find any reference within GMP? It's not a finding. So that's how it be as precise as possible. When you make it a finding, give it some more words than just a one sentence finding. That doesn't work. So make people aware what is the impact if they fail to do A and B. So, and make it precise so that everyone understands it. And even if you know yourself what the finding was about, and your team knows also, make sure your auditee understands, and anyone else reading the finding or reading the report, do they understand what the finding was about? Yeah. Or is it a complete question mark?
Yeah. I think it's an important point for everything that people write in GP. It doesn't matter if it's in CAPAs, deviations, audit reports. It should be clear for people that come in 20 years to read it. Because sometimes you read deviations or CAPAs or reports in such a way that it's clear only for the person who wrote it because he was there.
And for the auditee, possibly.
Yeah, but if next year there is another auditor, he wants to learn from the past auditors, he doesn't understand what's going on there, the audit report has no value.
Correct.
And it should have value, because I find audit reports are really important also between company locations. So if you have a same product that different site locations of your company, they buy and source this material, and even if it's maybe different process, different building, but it's really helpful to understand from their audit the processes of the company. Because even if it's completely different product, they may have the same faulty processes also in another product.
Possibly, yes.
And that's why the audit report should be really clear and hopefully also shareable between sites. And at least it's applicable for big companies.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. Usually, you have your trending within your audit system. You should have. So when you look at your audits conducted throughout the year and you look at your findings, there should be clear trends available, or the QA unit should analyze it that way, that okay, so there is not only that manufacturing plant, but they have also the same issue. So that we need to approach, and we need to find solutions for that. Also, when it comes to documentation system, for example, that can be a very systemic issue. Also, can be company-wide, not only for the production side, but also for other departments. So yes, trending is the key word here.
What are your tips for people who want to become auditors? Let's say that two groups of people. First of all, I think that's a very lucrative field for everybody who works in the pharma industry. So let's break it into groups who work already in the QA. How can they become auditors, and also people who don't work in the quality assurance?
So it pretty much depends on what kind of education system the company has implemented for internal auditors, or if there's any at all. So if there is one, so first of all, is the whole of the company allowed to take part in that, or is that only dedicated to QA, for example? So I don't see any objection against people from other departments becoming auditors. On the contrary, it makes sense because they bring a lot of other insight into the processes. For example, if they work in the QC department or they work in the supply chain department, and they bring that knowledge, and which they can apply to each audit that is conducted on site, for example, or when auditing vendors and suppliers. So I think it is very valuable to have a mixture of people, not only QA, but also people from coming from other departments, because they bring a lot of valuable background with it, and the auditing techniques and things, how to approach the auditing itself. Everyone can learn that. And a lot of that comes with expertise or with experiences, put it that way. And you gain that expertise then on the way. Everyone can observe a company audits. You don't necessarily have to come from a QA background. It helps though. But any other background can do it, and they can be great auditors also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just try to get yourself into internal audit programs.
If such thing exists.
And if not, then it would be more difficult.
Yeah, then it is difficult.
Switch companies.
Well, it might be worth reaching out to the QA unit and see if there's any options of becoming an internal auditor, if there's any educational programs or not, and see how you can get to it, or if you can participate. It's worth checking for that, because sometimes QA they don't even realize that there is
other people who
might be interested, exactly, unless they go out and ask for it, for example. Exactly, or that they bring value to the auditing team, internal audit team. Yeah.
What are the qualities of a good auditor?
So first of all, be a good listener. Listen to what people have to say. So that is, first and foremost, that is your job as an auditor. At the same time, you need to ask the right questions to get answers from your auditees. But first and foremost, listen to what people have to say. Let them explain the process to you. Don't interrupt them. Don't ask too many questions at a time. So, and even if you pause for example, to make some notes. Some people tend to even continue talking on the process, for example, which is perfectly fine. So yes, be an overly good listener. Ask the right questions, and be kind and patient. Be flexible and open, and be curious. So that is something. Being flexible is probably one of the most other important traits that you need to have as an auditor, because even though you have wonderfully set up your audit agenda, you will probably deviate from it anyway, because you see, that's life, that happens. Or you need to do the document review before the tour of facilities, because due to reasons, it cannot take place at the actually assigned or aligned time that you have allocated for it in the audit agenda. So, or your site director isn't available for an interview. Okay, so never mind, go to the next topic. Be flexible, and also be willing to learn. You are not the expertise in the fields that you audit. You only check for compliance, you check for standards, whatever. However, those people are the experts in their fields, and let them explain the process to you, and ask questions until you have fully understood the process. It is okay. And if you think you haven't understood it yet, it's okay, ask the same question again, because actually they need to make sure you have understood the process. And even if you think, oh my god, it's silly, I'm asking the same question again, it's okay. It's completely okay. There is no silly question, honestly. So even for the experienced auditors, it is sometimes it is very stressful, and it's very challenging being on site and being able or having to quickly analyze the situations as you are on site. And you're only given a day or 1.5 to fully grab the situation as is. So yeah, it's okay. Also bring your experts. If you don't fully understand that particular area that you're looking at, bring your experts. Completely okay also, yeah? So you don't have to know each and everything. That's completely okay. You're not the expert in that field. Those people are that you audit. And let them explain that to you. It's wonderful.
Yeah. How much percentage is being assertive in this combination of qualities?
How much percentage?
So we said you must be curious and ask a lot of questions, be nice, but sometimes, as we said, you must be assertive enough to ask for the same documentation again and again and again.
Yeah, definitely. So you see that is a trait that you develop over time. So in the beginning, you might be afraid to do so, because you're thinking, oh God, I don't know, I've asked that several times, and people are trying to get nervous, or they get angry even, and if I ask that same question again, either they will throw me out of the company. I don't know what happens. No, that's okay. You see, that will not happen, by the way. And you see, that's something you develop over time. You don't have to have it right from scratch. And all those other traits that you develop, like be cool. You say cool down, even if it's getting stressful, and so on and so forth. You develop over the time. That's completely okay. You don't have to have it right away. But you have to have it. Also, you have to have that trait, to a certain extent.
What are your tips for people who want to become auditors? Let's say that two groups of people. First of all, I think that's a very lucrative field for everybody who works in the pharma industry. So let's break it into groups. Groups who work already in the QA. How can they become auditors? And also people who don't work in the quality assurance.
So it pretty much depends on what kind of education system the company has implemented for internal auditors, or if there's any at all. So if there is one, so first of all, is the whole of the company allowed to take part in that, or is that only dedicated to QA, for example? So I don't see any objection against people from other departments becoming auditors. On the contrary, it makes sense because they bring a lot of other insight into the processes. For example, if they work in the QC department or they work in the supply chain department, and they bring that knowledge, and which they can apply to each audit that is conducted on site, for example, or when auditing vendors and suppliers. So I think it is very valuable to have a mixture of people, not only QA, but also people from coming from other departments, because they bring a lot of valuable background with it, and the auditing techniques and things, how to approach the auditing itself. Everyone can learn that. And a lot of that comes with expertise or with experiences, put it that way. And you gain that expertise then on the way. Everyone can observe a company audits. You don't necessarily have to come from a QA background. It helps though. But any other background can do it, and they can be great auditors also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just try to get yourself into internal audit programs.
If such thing exists.
And if not, then it would be more difficult.
Yeah, then it is difficult.
Switch companies.
Well, it might be worth reaching out to the QA unit and see if there's any options of becoming an internal auditor. If there's any educational programs or not, and see how you can get to it, or if you can participate. It's worth checking for that, because sometimes QA they don't even realize that there is
other people who might be
interested. Exactly, unless they go out and ask for it, for example. Yeah, exactly, or that they bring value to the auditing team, internal audit team. Yeah.
What are the qualities of a good auditor?
So first of all, be a good listener. Listen to what people have to say. So that is, first and foremost, that is your job as an auditor. At the same time, you need to ask the right questions to get answers from your auditees. But first and foremost, listen to what people have to say. Let them explain the process to you. Don't interrupt them. Don't ask too many questions at a time. So, and even if you pause, for example, to make some notes, some people tend to even continue talking on the process, for example, which is perfectly fine. So yes, be an overly good listener. Ask the right questions, and be kind and patient, be flexible and open, and be curious. So that is something, being flexible is probably one of the most other important traits that you need to have as an auditor, because even though you have wonderfully set up your audit agenda, you will probably deviate from it anyway, because you see, that's life, that happens. Or you need to do the document review before the tour of facilities, because due to reasons, it cannot take place at the actually assigned or aligned time that you have allocated for it in the audit agenda. So, or your site director isn't available for an interview. Okay, so never mind, go to the next topic. Be flexible, and also be willing to learn. You are not the expertise in the fields that you audit. You only check for compliance, you check for standards, whatever. However, those people are the experts in their fields, and let them explain the process to you, and ask questions until you have fully understood the process. It is okay. And if you think you haven't understood it yet, it's okay, ask the same question again, because actually they need to make sure you have understood the process. And even if you think, oh my god, it's silly, I'm asking the same question again, it's okay. It's completely okay. There is no silly question, honestly. So even for the experienced auditors, it is sometimes it is very stressful, and it's very challenging being on site and being able or having to quickly analyze the situations as you are on site. And you're only given a day or 1.5 to fully grab the situation as is. So yeah, it's okay. Also, bring your experts. If you don't fully understand that particular area that you're looking at, bring your experts. Completely okay. Also, yeah. So you don't have to know each and everything. That's completely okay. You're not the expert in that field. Those people are that you audit, and let them explain that to you. It's wonderful.
Yeah. How much percentage is being assertive in this combination of qualities?
How much percentage?
So we said you must be curious and ask a lot of questions, be nice, but sometimes, as we said, you must be assertive enough to ask for the same documentation again and again and again.
Yeah, definitely. So you see that is a trait that you develop over time. So in the beginning, you might be afraid to do so because you're thinking, oh God, I don't know, I've asked that several times and people are trying to get nervous or they get angry even. And if I ask that same question again, either they will throw me out of the company. I don't know what happens. No, that's okay. You see, that will not happen, by the way. And you see, that's something you develop over time. You don't have to have it right from scratch. And all those other traits that you develop, like be cool, you say cool down, even if it's getting stressful, and so on and so forth. You develop over the time. That's completely okay. You don't have to have it right away. But you have to have also you have to have that trait, to a certain extent.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Every time that you're in the area, come by, and we can also have additional talk.
Thank you so much, Jan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Qualitalks Podcast. If you did, consider subscribing so you don't miss any more episodes. Stay compliant, and see you in the next one.